Okay, so this week is Parshas Vayakel, which means from Kihila, Vayakel, to gather together. So it starts off with Moshe gathering, God says, gather together. Moshe gathers together all the Jewish people. And he says to them, and this is what it starts off with, Vayakel Moshe es kol b'nei Adas Yisrael, and he gathers together all Adas b'nei Yisrael, all the Jewish people. Vayomer aleim, and he says to them, Eila hadvarim, these are the things, asher tziva Hashem la'asososam, that God commanded la'asototam, to do them. He goes on to, and then we're wondering, what are the things that he's going to tell us? These are the things that God commanded you to do. He continues to say, Sheshet yamim te'aseh malacha. 6 days your work should be done. Ubayom hashvi'i yiheh lachem kodesh. On the 7th day it should be a holy time for you. Shabbat, Shabbaton laHashem. A Shabbat for Hashem. And then he goes on to say, these are the things, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. These are the things that God commanded. Lemor kichu me'itchem truma. You should take for it. And he's going to call, this is what the entire portion is about, how God is saying that, how Moshe is telling the Jewish people to bring truma, which means an offering for God. Bring a truma, an offering for God for the Mishkan. These were the donations that the Jewish people gave to the Mishkan. And every person gave whatever they wanted. And it says that they gave so much that Moshe had to tell them already, stop, enough, we have already too much. That's how much they gave. And it says as well that the woman came before the men. It says the woman came first, and the woman gave a special kind. They gave even more special than what the men gave. It says they used to do some kind of braiding on the animal itself, and they would braid it on if you braided on the animal itself while the animal was still alive, rather than cut it off from the animal, it was fresher, it was better, it was some kind of special way of making the tapestries, and that's what the woman gave. So it wasn't only inanimate that they're giving, but they're actually offering from the animal itself. Obviously it was taken off afterwards, but it was given from the animal itself while the animal was still alive, that they would give that. So that was even more special than what the men gave. So the idea of this parsha is very much about gathering all the Jewish people together, and each person giving what they feel they can give. And this is in order to build the Mishkan, which is the place that His presence rests in. It was replaced later on by the Beit HaMikdash. But throughout the time in the desert, the Mishkan was always that place where God rested. And it says even when the Beit HaMikdash was built, they still had parts of the Mishkan that were in it somewhere, and they were put in there in order to remember the Mishkan, because the Mishkan was in the desert. And even when we're feeling a place of desert, when we feel inside like we're like a desert, like we're desolate, like we can't find God, like it feels like we're alone, we need to know this is exactly where God is. And I just did an interview last night, and the man was saying, Rabbi Paltiel, who's a teacher of Hasidus, and he was saying how, very often we think of faith as something like, faith makes us feel good, things are going to turn out good, everything's going to be good. And really, we have to realize that the gift of faith alone is a gift. That alone is a gift. The fact that we believe in God, the fact that we feel that God is working with us, helping us, that alone is a gift, no matter how things turn out. If it turns out this way or that way, because in the grand scheme, we don't know how things are going to turn out. And even if we think that things should turn out the way that we think they are supposed to turn out, they don't. And God has so much of a bigger plan, and we don't know that plan. It's like, the calculations that a computer can make in 1 second, like no human being can make, right? You can make all these, ask the ChatGPT a question, or ask all of a sudden you get like, woo! No one thinks so fast. It's combining all this information and spitting it out. And God's mind is obviously much bigger than the ChatGPT or the computer. So we don't know God's calculation of past and present and future and how this is all going to fit in, and past reincarnations and current life. There's so many calculations, so we don't know how things are going to turn out. But the fact that we have God in our lives, that alone is something that is a blessing. It's a blessing that we have God, because if we wouldn't have God, there would be this constant state of fear. No one's fear for survival. No one's helping us. And God being with us makes us feel just a certain level of tranquility. And this is, so this is the idea of the Mishkan, that it's in the desert, but in the desert even, we have the Mishkan. And really this week's Torah portion is teaching us how to create that kind of atmosphere in our own lives. And this is how we see it. So Moshe's gathering the Jewish people, and we're going to have the reason why I read to you the Hebrew words, because there's several questions on this that we're going to try to answer. Moshe's gathering together the Jewish people, and he's saying to them something. He's saying, Ela hadvarim, these are the things. But then we don't know what the things are. He only says the things about donating to the Mishkan after he interrupts it with telling us first about the Shabbat. And this teaches us that when they built the Mishkan, they had to stop building it for Shabbat. There was no work that was done on Shabbat. So it's putting in, first do the Shabbat. First you need to keep for Shabbat. On 6 days you do your work. On the 7th day the work has to be done. It's completely done. It has to be finished. You don't do that work on Shabbat. And really this is teaching us about a mindset that we're supposed to have with our own self. So what does it say? It says, Sheshet Yamim Te'aseh Melacha. What should it say? Sheshet Yamim, you should do work. Tavod. How would you say? Ta'aseh. What's Te'aseh? Sheshet Yamim Te'aseh Melachtecha.
Was it Te'aseh?
It should be done.
It should, okay.
Not Ta'aseh, which means do.
It's a demand.
Yeah,
Ta'aseh
do.
is, yeah.
Do your work. 6 days, do your work. Instead, 6 days, your work should be done.
By whom?
By whom? That's the question. By whom? Exactly. Why is it saying Te'aseh? 6 days your work should be done. By whom?
Maybe.
Who's doing the work?
It means you have to treat the people that work for you also to give them the 7 days as, relaxing day. Not only you. So
That's a
it's
nice
very
idea.
social.
Very socially minded. That's true.
Yeah.
So how you treat others, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I think
That's one
Even
idea, yes. Even more than that.
Even if your work is, let's say you're gonna have work from that last week to after Shabbos, you've got it anyway, but the point is whatever you did is done. That should be done, and you can only, that's it. Even if it's gonna be after Shabbos, it's okay, because it's done. So that's why it should be done. You have to act like it's
You mean
done.
when you enter Shabbat,
Right.
you have to look at it as your work
Right,
is complete.
right, regardless
Your work
of-
is done. Even if it's not done, your work is complete. You shouldn't be
But
thinking on
does that
Shabbat. Sorry?
It's more like te'aseh without saying by whom. Like when you say the word te'aseh rather than ta'aseh. Not you ta'aseh. The work will get done
Yes.
somehow.
So how's it
By
going to get done?
somebody.
Who's going to do it?
Whoever's gonna do it. Everybody's gonna do it. Hashem is gonna do it for us. We are
Exactly.
just,
So that is exactly what it's telling us. 6 days your work should be done. How are you doing your work? There's 2 ways that you can do your work. There's one way that you're doing your work is, and sometimes we do that, and I'm talking to myself because very often I do it. Like, everything's on me. Everything. It's all on my shoulders. I'm under control. Like everything's on me. And we feel like if we're not doing it, nobody's going to do it.
Absolutely.
Right? And we, okay.
It's a mindset.
It's a
It's a
mindset.
mindset.
It's-
If we say to ourselves,
Delegate.
it should be done,
It's not so bad.
let go. Let go of whatever it is that's holding us to be in that moment of rest.
Exactly.
It's a mindset.
In other words, it says, and this is a verse from Tehillim, it says, Yegia kapecha, the work of your hands, kisocha, when you eat, from the work of your hands, ashrecha, it will be good for you, v'tovlach, which means when you work, when you do the work, the exertion of your hands, that's when it's good for you, meaning honest labor, on a simple level, it means honest labor is good for you. You do honest labor, you work with your hands, honest labor, you're good and you're blessed for doing it. On a deeper level, it's telling us, Yegia kapecha, the exertion of your hands. Your hands, your feet might need to work. but don't immerse your whole self into it to the point that you're getting so aggravated because you think that if I'm not doing it to the millionth degree, then it's not going to be good. And sometimes we work like that. Sometimes we're so worried about putting ourselves in and figuring out how we're going to make a living. And not only how we're going to make a living, but am I going to put my money in stocks? And the stocks aren't going well. So, because the stocks aren't going well right now, right? Like, so what am I going to do about that? And I'm worried about my livelihood. My whole self is so immersed in it. And the Torah says, Te aseh malacha. Let your work be done. Of course you need to put yourself into your work. But how much are you putting yourself into your work? How much are you worrying yourself about your work? How much are you worrying yourself about your livelihood, that you don't have enough, or that you need to make it more, or to figure out, and how am I going to do it, and what am I going to do, and how I'm going to try to work so it should be more and more and more and more? Because we live in a day and age where we want more and more and more. And how much are we investing ourselves into? I need more, and how do I make more, and what am I doing? Honest work, yagia kapecha, do honest work, the work of your hands, exert yourself, but not to the point that you're so worried about it and full of anxiety about it, and so much so that it's affecting literally your health, so much so that you feel I need more and I need more, and there's never enough. So Sheisus Yamim Te Aseh Malacha, 6 days, let your work be done, but don't put your head and your heart so much into it that you're trying to make it more and more and more. Do your work honestly. Do what you need to do for your work, but your heart and your mind should be realizing that ultimately the money is not coming because you're working that extra hour or because you're working that extra day.
I don't know.
You might have to also.
No.
Sometimes you might have to.
You might have to work that extra
Yes,
day.
I think it's good that you're working.
It's good that you're working.
It's not that you're chasing.
Telling it not to
That's the
consume
thing,
you.
the
Not-
chasing.
The
let-
chasing,
not
not
the
chasing, but working
So
is
there's-
good. And don't rely only on God.
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
Don't
you
rely on
have
God.
to work.
But-
Yeah, God will help you if you are working.
God will help you if you're working, but God is going to help you.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
And you have to realize that it's coming from
But-
God. Like there's a story, like you said, chasing. There's a story from the Baal Shem Tov, where he sees somebody waking up early in the morning, and the man is running off to the marketplace. And he says, "Where are you running?" He says, "I'm running to make my livelihood. I'm running to get my livelihood." And he says to him, "But what if your livelihood is behind you?
Oh, wow. This
Right?
is nice.
What if it's behind you?" And so often we're running because we think that we're in charge. So the mindset is not, don't put in the effort. Of course you put in the effort. Of course you do. You have, in fact, it says yagia kapecha. It's the exertion. You need to exert yourself. Exert yourself in what you're doing, but with the knowledge that what is coming to you is coming from God. And if you're meant to do it, God will help you.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes you're in a difficult situation and you don't know where it's coming from, and you can make yourself crazy, saying, with worry, or you say, I'm doing my best. I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to do what I can do. But ultimately, God is going to be the one who's providing. And it's a different mindset. It's a different mindset if you think it's all coming from you because you're doing your effort, or if you're thinking it's coming from God. What is the difference in the mindset? How would you say the difference in the mindset is?
So I look at it a little bit like from a little bit different perspective. A melacha, you're gonna do the work.
Yes,
You're gonna do it.
100%.
It doesn't matter how much effort you're gonna put, because the melacha is gonna be done for you by Hashem. You're gonna. How many times you work so hard, it just doesn't work. Like you don't get where you want, but you're working so hard on it and you're not getting it. And maybe it's not the right thing that I'm doing right now. So you have to step back and say it's not how much effort I'm putting in, but the work will get done. If it reminds me of last Friday, I didn't even know how to put myself in a situation of shopping, cooking, and doing work. Okay? I had to get everything done in that one little day that has to end like at 5 so I can make it on time for Shabbat. So I literally all day I was chanting, Hashem, it's all on you. It's all on you. Like,
You make fun of my Friday this
you
year.
can make it work somehow. I don't know how it's gonna get
Yeah,
done.
that is true, yes.
It's not that I didn't do the work, but I left it for him to get done.
Right. In other words, the mindset, you're still doing the same thing. You're still putting in the same effort, but it's with a mindset shift. That I'm doing the same effort, but it's not I have to do my part, but it's up to God to make it happen. I'm doing what I can do, and I'm gonna do what I can do.
And I do
But
my best.
and I do my best, absolutely, because we're supposed to do our best. But ultimately, the success of my endeavor is completely up to God. And when you have that shift in mindset, it takes off a little bit of the pressure on you. That it's not just everything on your shoulders. The same way we do with health. You know, when it comes to health, if someone's, God forbid, not well, we go to the best doctors. We try to find the best hospitals, the best doctors to cure it. But it's with the mindset that the doctor is only a messenger of God. That the cure and the healing comes from God. So we have to do our best. We have to do our effort. But the mindset shift makes all the difference because it's not only in my hands. I am just the vessel from which God is going to make it happen. It's kind of like the axe in the hand, and this is what it's compared to, the axe in the hand of the wood chopper.
Oh.
So the axe has to do the chopping. But if you think that the axe is the one that's chopping the tree, you're very mistaken. The axe has to be there. It has to be there in order to chop the tree. Otherwise, the tree is not going to come down. But the axe is being held by the wood chopper. And we are being held by God. We still have to be the axe. We still have to be doing cutting the tree, but it's God who's holding our hand. And when we realize that, it makes a complete shift in our perspective. So much so that te'aseh melacha, that our work is almost done for us. It's like our work is done for us because we're not investing our worries and our stress into the work, right? There's a story told of Reb Zusha of Anapoli, who he used to say, God provides for me. God, he was on a very, very high level. And he says, when I sit down and I say to God, God, I need my breakfast. I need my meal to be brought for me. And that's when he had a servant or a caretaker. The caretaker would come and bring his breakfast. And Reb Zusha said, my food, my sustenance is only coming from God. And one day his caretaker said, you know what? I'm going to play a trick on him. He thinks it's coming from God. I'm the one that brings it. I'm the one that prepares it for him. What do you mean it's coming from God? If I don't prepare it for him, he doesn't have it. He says, today I'm going to give him that lesson. And Reb Zusha sits down at his table and he says, thank God, God, thank you so much for providing for me. And the caretaker decides, I'm not coming. There's a knock on the door. The caretaker goes to answer the door, and this person is bringing this whole beautiful meal, saying, I brought this meal for Reb Zusha because he helped me with this and this situation, and now I'm giving him this gift. Okay. And that was when the caretaker realized this man is a holy man. He sees that God is actually providing for him. Now, obviously, we don't just say my meal is coming from God. we actually have to do the work in order to make that happen. But we need to remember,
And it's still coming.
and it's still coming from God, exactly, because we live in a world where we don't see behind the veil. We don't see what's actually going on behind the veil. It feels like everything is very natural. It feels like things are happening naturally. It feels like if I do this, then this happens. But we're like puppets, each and every one of us. And there's someone up on high pulling the strings of the puppet to make the things happen. So we feel like we're the ones that are doing things, And we need to be the ones doing things, but it's God who put the ideas and the ideas and the thoughts in our head to do something. So if you have a business idea, it's not because you're so smart, it's because God put that thought in your head to go with this business idea. Or if you decide to work in a certain place and you're doing this and that, God is giving you the power to do the work that you're supposed to be doing. And we need to remember the one that's pulling those strings above. And what happens if we remember? It says, if your work is te'aseh, if your work is done, if you realize that your work is being done through your effort, but because of God is pulling those strings, then it will be a Shabbat Shabbaton. Then it will be a double Shabbos for you.
Isn't that Yom Kippur? Isn't that how we refer to Yom Kippur?
Yes, so Yom Kippur is considered Shabbat Shabbaton, but here it's telling us something a little different, that if your work, if you take that mindset where you don't feel that it's only you and you're in control and you have to exert yourself, and if you don't, then catastrophe. But you take the idea that God is the one that is helping you and God is the one that is going to make you successful, then it becomes a Shabbat Shabbaton, which means a double Shabbos. How is it a double Shabbat? It's a Shabbat on Shabbos itself. It's a day of rest. And it's a Shabbat even during the week. Because during the week, you're looking at your week in a different way. You're not running around with this stress and this aggravation and everything that happens to you, taking it as if this is the end of the world. But you're saying, if this is what happened to me, I'll handle it. I can handle it because this is what God wants of me. And your blood pressure will suddenly become normal and stabilized because you're not having that stress. If you really believe that this is happening because God wants this to happen, and it will be good, and it will be for a good reason, then your whole approach to your week becomes different. So it's not only Shabbat that becomes a restful day because you're not doing work, but even your week becomes a restful week because you don't have that anxiety that you're schlepping on your shoulders, feeling like you have to do it, and you're having so much worry and anxiety about what you're doing. Right?
I'm not sure.
What part?
No, you said that during the week
During the week
you
you're
are
still
more relaxed.
you're more at ease. You're not so stressed.
Okay.
When a person feels that everything is on them, you're extremely stressed. When a person
I see.
believes in God, that God is helping you in everything that you're doing, you feel like you have it's like when you're doing, it's like parenting. You know, if you have a husband who you're parenting with, you feel like, okay, if I don't do something, he'll do something. Right? Hopefully. Let's take, if you have a partner.
You can have a
Good, bad
partner.
example, try another.
Let's take another example.
I really thought for many years that my husband is not doing anything until he had work trips for 2.5 weeks. And like, oh, I have to take the garbage out. Oh, there are other things that he does in the house that I don't even realize when he's here. You know, like it's like, so yeah, they don't do much, but they do.
But they do
When they're
it.
not there, you realize how much they do.
Or even let's say you have a business and you have a partner in the business.
Yeah, that's better, yeah.
We'll take it a more powered way. You feel like, okay, if I have a partner, someone's helping me along in it. If I don't do something, then he'll do something. If we're doing it together, and when you work
Right.
together, it makes the work so much easier to handle. Now compare that with what we have, which is a partner who's the divine partner, which is the king of the universe, the Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Hashem helping us. When we feel that God is helping us, He's at our side, He's not going to let us be defeated. He's not going to just let us go and have, He's there helping us to succeed. Then all of a sudden your week becomes so much easier. The stress of feeling that you're alone becomes so overwhelming, whereas if you know that God is at your side helping you, you just becomes less stressed. So even your week becomes more restful, like Shabbat, right? That works. Okay. So now we understand why it says te'aseh malacha, that your work will be done. But the word vayakel, Moshe is gathering all of us. And it says, when did this actually take place? That this parsha of Vayakel took place? It took place on the day after Yom Kippur. What happened on the day after Yom Kippur? On Yom Kippur, God said to Moshe, Salachti kidbarecha, I have forgiven you. What happened? We remember, and we've missed a couple parshios, but what was going on in the last few parshios is that the Jewish people made the egel, the golden calf, right? They made this golden calf. Moshe had ascended. First they got the 10 Commandments. They got the 10 Commandments on Shavuot, the holiday of Shavuot, on Vav Sivan, on the 6th day of Sivan. The next day, Moshe ascended to heaven to study with God for 40 days and 40 nights to learn the Torah in order to teach the Jewish people and to come down with the 10 Commandments from God. He comes down on Shivasar B'Tammuz, the 7th day of Tammuz, which is a fast day. It's a very sad day. And what happened on the very first Shivasar B'Tammuz years ago, that was so sad, Moshe took those tablets that he was holding from God, sees the Jewish people serving this golden calf, took the tablets and broke them, right, in order to save the Jewish people. What happens next? They clean up the mess of what was done. He rebukes them. They realize that they've made a terrible mistake. And then Moshe goes back up to heaven for another 40 days and 40 nights. This is from Yud-Ches Tammuz, Yud-Ches the 18th of Tammuz, until Chav-Tes Av, the 29th of Av. He goes for 40 days and 40 nights. He goes up again just to get forgiveness for the Jewish people. He comes down again to the Jewish people, and that's when he goes, God forgives them. He doesn't anymore want to kill them out, but he now goes up to get the second set of tablets and to get complete forgiveness. God forgave them that he's not killing out the nation. God wanted to kill out the entire Jewish people and make the Jewish people for Moshe. Moshe absolved that, right? And that's what we learned in Parshas Tetzaveh. That was the one parsha that Moshe's name didn't appear in, because Moshe said, if you want to obliterate them all, erase me. He was the ultimate leader. I don't want a part of this. So he got that forgiveness, but then he went up again on Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur, those 40 days. And when he finally came down, this third set of 40 days, it was on Yom Kippur, God said, Salachti kidbarecha. I have forgiven them as you asked. I have forgiven you as you asked. You are forgiven. The Jewish people are forgiven. And that was when he came down with this second set of tablets. So this whole part of Vayakel, Moshe gathering the Jewish people now to tell them about the making of the Mishkan, and each of them contributing different things for the Mishkan, happened on Yom Kippur, on the day that God had said, the day after Yom Kippur, when God had said, I forgive the Jewish people. And in a sense, this whole building of the Mishkan was a way to move on for the Jewish people after the terrible, terrible thing that they did with the Egel. You see, the Egel is like, we all have like this manual, right? When we are opening our phones or we're opening the computer, there's a manual of how to do it. This is how you want to work a phone. This is what you do. Press this button, press that. This is how you set it. This is how it works. But when you don't follow the manual, things don't work as planned. So the Jewish people had the Torah. They now receive the Torah, but they're not following the manual. And so instead of it working as planned, the whole plan is no longer working. And they had to restructure. It was a new restructuring.
The question is, though, if the people who participated in the sin, weren't they killed?
They were killed, but it says that the entire nation went to a lower level as a result.
Okay.
It says even Moshe, who wasn't a part of it, God says, go down, which means go down in
Because
level.
you lost the ability to see.
Exactly.
God's
You're
will.
everyone was affected by this. It says the sin of the Egel was like that first sin of the Eitz Hadas. The world was again rectified from the sin of the Eitz Hadas, and now when they received the Torah, and now after receiving the Torah, when they did this Egel, it was this sin of cosmic proportions, because you just received the Torah and here you're doing this Egel. And what happens? So the whole world needs to now be reset. Everyone, even Shevet Levi, which was not part of it, and they were charged with killing the ones who were. Even Moshe, who was not even there, everyone went down in level. And the way that, so what was really this whole thing with the Egel? The way that Maimonides understands idol worship in general. He says, how is it that people began to serve idols? Why did people begin to serve idols? What does it mean? Like, people knew that there was a God, and all of a sudden people are serving idols? Like, what is that all about? So the way idolatry originally started was that people attributed strength to the emissaries of God, meaning there's stars and astrology, and this is different energies of God, different messengers of God. And so we're attributing powers to these messengers, just like a person would feel like there's this king who runs the country, or let's say there's Trump who runs the country, right? And then he has all his Secretary of State and his Secretary of Defense and his Secretary. So you can't go all the way to see the president, but at least let me go see some of his secretaries, some of the people in charge, some of the people who he put in charge, or some of his ambassadors if I live in a different country. They have power. Let me ask them, because I can't go to the king himself or to the president himself. Let me at least go to his messengers. And that's what people felt originally. They said, God is so powerful, so almighty, so all-present. We can't go straight to God, but let's at least use the things that he gave power to. He gave power to the sun, to the moon, to the stars, to the astrology, to all these different forces of nature. Let us serve these forces. Let us get on the good side of these forces, and then things will be good for us. That's how it started.
And they needed something tangible.
They needed something tangible. They thought, God is so big and so almighty. We need something tangible like his messenger, like something that he's giving us the power to do. What happened was, with time, these messengers became the power. They started to serve rather than see them as messengers of the king who are just doing the will of the king. They saw it as these things have their own power. Just like we said, that axe in the hands of the wood chopper, right? It's the wood chopper who has the power, but you start attributing the power instead to the axe. You say, oh, the axe is the powerful. Look, the axe is what actually cut down the tree. Not the wood chopper who is holding the axe, but the axe itself has power. And that's how idolatry started. And then they started serving things made out of stone and wood that resembled different goddesses, different powers, different forces of nature, different things. That's how it evolved into actually serving these idols themselves. So this is what happened as well when the Jewish people were serving the golden calf. They were using it as a tangible example. They said, we need someone like Moshe. Moshe was the intermediary between us. We need something physical that we can serve, that we can give power to as the kind of the intermediary between God and us. So in a sense, when Moshe is saying this about Shabbat, how we need to keep Shabbat, how 6 days we need to work and the seventh day is Shabbat, how during the 6 days, even when we're working, we have to realize that the work is not what is making it happen, but it's God behind the work. The work is our effort. The work is the axe, but it's the wood chopper behind the axe that's making it happen. Then we get to a new awareness of what this whole idolatry is. In other words, idolatry on a subtle level for each and every one of us. And this is like, wow. But when we really think about it, each and every one of us is serving an idol when we attribute power to something other than God. When we think that the doctor has the power to heal, not that he's a messenger of God who's been given the power to heal. When we think that our boss is the one who has the ability to ruin my life or make my life with the money that I'm getting, then we are attributing power to my boss. We're giving this intermediary the power. When we think that the stock market is our idol, that that's what is going to help us to either be rich or to be poor, and I'm serving the stock market because that is the medium, that is really serving idols. We're attributing power to someone or something rather than realizing that everything in this world is coming from God. And that's what we can do when we keep Shabbat. When we keep Shabbat, we can realize, I'm stopping to work on Shabbat. Why am I stopping to work? Because it's not my work that provides the sustenance. It's God that provides the sustenance. My work is just me being the axe, but it's God who's the wood chopper. And even during the week when I do my work, I'm not doing it with this frenzy and this anxiety and this stress. I'm putting myself into it because this is what we're obligated to do. We're obligated to put our best into what we do. But we realize that where is my success coming from ultimately, or my failure coming from? Ultimately from God. So keeping Shabbat is in a sense the opposite of idolatry. Because when we keep Shabbat in the right way, we're realizing that the power that gives me the ability to work and to do whatever I'm doing is from God. That I am simply the medium, but that nothing and no one has power over me. And this goes as far as, when we think, even when you think socially, oh, this one has power to make me to be liked by people, or this one has, whenever we attribute power to another person, I need to get on the good side of this person because if I don't get on the good side of this person, I'm finished. No, you're not finished. You do your effort because maybe that person is a shliach for you. Maybe that person is a messenger. Maybe that person is the axe. But ultimately, who's pulling the strings? That is God and God alone. Mm-hmm. And that's why this week's Parsha is called Vayakel, which means the unity. Everyone together. Because when we realize that everything, every circumstance, everything, every situation in life, there's a unity holding it all together. And that unity that's holding it all together and creating all these particulars, it feels like nothing is related. But there is that unity, and that unity is God and God alone. Mm-hmm. And God is running the world in a way that is bringing all these separate situations and separate circumstances. It feels like duplicity. It feels like multiplicity. We look at things and everything feels unrelated. But we are all related. The energy is all related, and that energy that unites us is our Creator and our Creator alone. And that's why the Parsha starts with Vayakel. That through this realization of Vayakel, and through the realization of how you do your work all week long, Te'aseh, that the work is done, that you do it, but it's done. It's not because you're putting so much nervousness into it and stress into it, but with the realization. The realization that God is in control and God is the power behind it, that brings us to a Shabbaton, that we have a certain relief in our week, a certain stresslessness in our week, and that stresslessness is in Shabbat as well. And, really the work that we bring to the Mishkan is really the work that we all bring in our world. Each and every one of us, they all donated different things. Mm-hmm. Everyone donated whatever their heart's desires, it says. And really in this world, we're all doing that as well. We're making a Mishkan for God. We're making a dwelling place for God in our world. And we're all doing it with the things that we are each individually donating. And what you donate is not what I donate. And what you donate is not what she donates. Everyone gives their unique contributions, their unique talents, their unique characteristics, their unique little area of life where they're impacting and affecting. And we need each and every one's donations because it's only with everyone's donation that we can actually have this Mishkan, this resting place for God. And that's what we can go through with the week, that,
Wow.
with that empowerment, that we each have our own contribution to make, and that we each should be doing it, and we should exert ourselves to do that, but with the realization that everything that we're exerting, the success of our efforts is all up to God and God alone. And that's something to take for us for the week.
Thank you.